I think that one thing that helps me stay motivated is giving myself permission to change, because I think that if you're just going through the motions and if you don't allow yourself to evolve, it shows to your audience and you will lose the joy of it.
Hey, Victoria, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. And, this is, I think it's going to be an interesting, episode, not just because about the content, and everything, but also to learn maybe some tips, tricks that you usually teach, right, to people. So I'm very curious myself, to be honest, to hear about those. So I might be a bit biased, but I feel really think that the things that you teach and that you create as a content is very important and everyone should listen a bit more. So very curious to learn more things from you directly today. But before we get started about content and, creator economy, monetization, and this and that, I would like to know a bit more about yourself, right? And usually we ask three main questions that are the mission. So basically, what do you aim to achieve with, what you're working on? The achievements, if there is anything that you're really proud of, any milestone, could be in your life, could be in your career. And also what is the purpose? So in addition to what do you aim to achieve, it is why do you do what you do?
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. It's nice to meet you. I'm Victoria. I am a content creator. I'm a registered yoga teacher. I am a writer. That one feels a little weird and new coming out of my mouth, but I will commit to that. I'm a writer. I very recently went full-time as a content creator in November. And before that, I was a full-time corporate lawyer. So it has been a big shift, a 180 shift to totally different career paths, which has been really strange, but really good. So mission, achievements, purpose. So my mission, I think when it comes to yoga and sharing movement, my hope is always just to be a facilitator between the practitioner and their body, their breath, and their intentions. When it comes to speaking and the types of things I share online, I'm usually just sharing things that I need to hear or have needed to hear in the past. So I'm just hoping to kind of call it like I see it and maybe make someone feel less alone in the process. And I do think I often try to, one of my big goals with the type of things I create, especially around mindfulness, is to take things that seem like lofty and unattainable, like presence or just anything in that mindfulness space, like meditation, and kind of distill it down to something simple that you can do in 1 minute that only takes a moment. So yeah, that's a little bit about my mission, my achievements. So I think that first, a big achievement recently heading in this new lane is just endeavoring to do creative work. I think that's such an achievement. Anyone who is aspiring openly to do creative work and trying, I think that's so bold. And so I'm proud of myself for taking that step. I think more tangible achievements, I'm writing a book with Penguin Random House that will be out in spring 2025. It's a poetry and prose collection that's focused around everyday spirituality and self-acceptance. So that is like a pinch me, doesn't feel real thing, a lifelong dream. So I'm really, really proud of that.
Well, congrats on all these, especially also for the book, right? And I just like trying to, is it real, right? type of feeling. So congratulations on that. And also I took a note of also, I saw in your link in bio about the retreat happening in April. We're going to talk in a second. I'm very curious about that. I'm very curious about community. But first, let's go for a second about the transition, right? Because I talk with many people that would like to become full-time creators. They're still doing a 9 to 5 job, or maybe they're not really happy what they're doing. How was for you the first month of transition of going from something that is so different, right, from what you do right now? How was that? Scared, concerned, excitement, I guess a bit of everything, but if you have to go in your memories, how was that moment?
Yeah, it was definitely a little bit of everything. I do think that I really waited quite a while before making the jump and putting in notice at my job. And I was really fortunate to have a great community at my corporate job who really supported me making that transition. So that was really, really helpful to not leave on a bad note and to feel like I have a lot of warmth still thinking about my corporate job and my legal practice, and I could see myself practicing law in the future in a different capacity. So it felt really good to have an amicable transition. I think it has to feel like a leap, though. No matter what, it's going to feel like a big, scary leap. And for me, I had my last day at my corporate job, and then I think something like the next day, I announced my book. And so I went straight from the corporate job to heavily focusing on writing my manuscript. And that was a really strange thing because I think creative work, I'm so used to doing types of work where you can just sit down and grind it out. And that's not how creative things work at all. And so learning to kind of figure out my creative process while under a deadline, and that it was very stressful, but I learned a lot. And I'm really happy to be here. It still feels early and new. Like I still feel like I'm in that phase of landing in this new place, but it feels good.
And, so after that, you said that in addition, of course, to the content that you create in the community is a very important part, right, of what you do. So first of all, like, how do you even, in previous episodes, we talk about the difference between a passive audience and an active community, right? How do you even start like a community that's going to be strong and it's going to not only interact with you, but also interact between like, themselves and other people involved themselves. So how do you do like from day one and be like, okay, I want to start a community?
That's a great question. I think I did not do it from day one when it comes to my content. And it was definitely something I had to learn. When I first started posting content, I was mostly posting movement related content. Like, here's how you learn a handstand. It was very much just value driven content, right? And not so much focused around community. And I think that eventually I learned that what you give to your audience is what you get back, right? And so if you are just sort of a spout for value, when the value stops, your connection with your audience stops, right? And so I found that I started to foster real community when I started to be more vulnerable with my audience, and I started to sort of humanize myself. I think that if you want people to see you as a human, you kind of have to show yourself as a human and not just a source of information. And so that is something that's really changed in what I share and how I share online, sort of showing a fuller picture of who I am. And I think in turn, I have a fuller relationship with my audience, if that makes sense.
And still on that, I'm very curious because I think that if I'm right, you cross-post like the same posts between Instagram and YouTube, right?
Mm-hmm. I do often, yeah.
Okay, so I have like two questions there. First of all, like, do you ever happen to post something only on Instagram and something only on TikTok, depending on the type of content / the type of people watching? And the second question on that is, have you noticed any difference between maybe the comments that you receive on each social media, or primarily do you have the same people following you on both?
I think I have different people following me on both. I think demographic-wise, my audience on Instagram is older. My audience on both platforms is heavily women, like over 90% women on both platforms. But the community definitely does feel different. And sometimes I do post different things. I think that TikTok right now is so individual piece of content driven. So when a post takes off, it's reaching a lot of people who are not in your audience and a lot of people who are not in your community. And that definitely changes the type of interaction that you get back. Whereas right now, I find the Instagram algorithm to be a lot more stable and a lot more likely to feed your content to your audience.
Interesting. And, in addition to the content, right, that you didn't make, in addition to the community, of course, it was also the component of, monetization, right? And it's something that I always love to talk about, with creators, because there is still sometimes, I don't want to say a taboo, right? But there is sometimes confusion on how creators make money and so on. And for instance, you mentioned the retreat. So I would like to also go into that because it's something very, different from the typical brand, branded content, for instance, and so on. In your case, in your niche and topics that you're mostly doing content on, have you find a best way to be still yourself and monetize? And if so, what are the ways for you to making money? Like the brand deals, if it's AdSense on YouTube, is it the TikTok TV program? Is it the retreat that you are now doing, or what else?
Yeah, so I think there are kind of lots of different buckets of ways that I monetize. I think my yoga app is a subscription model, and that's one big way that I monetize. And I love that that is something that I do because it's evergreen in the sense of that you're not compared to something like brand deals where you're always kind of having to get into new brand deals with a subscription model platform. You kind of just have this base of community and also income. So I really, really love, I think that considering some type of subscription model offering where you just provide what you provide online, but at a deeper level and in a way where you can actually get to know the people that are in that platform and have a more personal relationship is a really good way to like monetize and in a way that's very authentic and feels like in line with my mission. So I do think brand partnerships play a big role. And I think that when it comes to trying to stay authentic to myself while doing that, I feel fortunate right now to be able to have discretion and say no where something doesn't feel like something that I truly love or that I think my audience could benefit from learning about. So I love partnering with brands where what they're offering is related to mindfulness. For example, like I've partnered with Talkspace to promote therapy, and I really believe in that. Or I like partnering with brands that are brands that I really love on campaigns related to things that relate to my mission. So like I've done a mental health related campaign with Lululemon, and that felt really authentic because I'm very passionate about mental health. It really relates to my content, and I think a lot of my audience really enjoys learning about mental health related things. Or like I did a project called the Joy Project with Ulta. So things that sort of where the campaign itself relates to kind of my core message. I think my book is another source of revenue. And the TikTok Creativity Beta Program, like you mentioned, really is a great source of revenue for creators. It has limits. It only applies to certain types of content. But that's a great source of revenue. And the yoga retreat, like you said, I'm hosting my first yoga retreat, and I think that hopefully it will be the first of more than one. So yeah, those are a few ways that I monetize.
Is your brand ready to amplify its reach? Well, the Influencer Marketing Factory is here for you. We are a global influencer marketing agency helping brands ignite their growth. From influencer identification to campaign strategy, handling legalities and agreements, to managing shipping and logistics, we got you all covered. We work with hundreds of brands across different verticals, from Fortune 500 companies to direct-to-consumer brands. And we don't just stop there. With detailed ROI analysis, we help brands like yours measure success, transforming impressions into conversions. You can find us at theinfluencermarketingfactory.com or just searching the Influencer Marketing Factory on Google. I think that, the subscription one, it's an interesting one. I had also Miss Excel in another episode. We talk about like how, important it is to think about, I don't want to create all the time content, but I can also use the content to drive traffic to something that exists there, and with one click you can buy. So I think it's it helps you also, right, to not having like recurring and having a sort of baseline, right, every month, more or less, right, much to bring home. And when it comes to the retreat, how does it work? Like, are you organizing these and there is a X amount of people limited, like they can join you? Is it like altogether, do they need you? And during that, you also create content? Tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I'm working with a company on the retreat, and I'm hosting it with two other content creators who are my friends who are also yoga teachers. So we are going to Costa Rica. I'm really excited about that. We'll practice yoga, we'll meditate, we'll do workshops where we talk and journal together. We'll also do lots of like adventure things like going to national parks and hiking, that sort of thing. So that's sort of what it will be like when we're on the retreat. But yeah, we're working with a company called Trova Trip. So they handle a lot of the kind of nitty gritty organizational logistical things, which is really nice. We'll have an on the ground person who is a resident in Costa Rica who will help us with things like the excursions. And me and the other two content creators that I'm partnering with, Ness and Maddie, will teach yoga classes and lead the things that we do, related to yoga and mindfulness.
How do you, as a content creator, keep yourself in a good balance between, mindfulness, self-care, but also knowing that you have to creating content on a daily basis, you have to read comments, sometimes you have to fix things and so on. So how do you keep your own balance, knowing that it can be, we all know about the news about a lot of creators getting burned out, right? Because of content every single day, or because of hateful comments, or because this and because that, the algorithm sometimes changing and be difficult to be on the loop of the latest trends. How do you, what do you do on your personal life to be able to manage everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's hard. I definitely don't have the perfect answer by any means, but I think that I'm really trying to treat content creation and everything that I do now like a 9 to 5 to some extent. So really trying to get sort of set times where I do set things. On this day I write, on this day I film for my yoga platform. I think that kind of helps me not get frazzled and just sort of spin like a top. I think it's so important to spend time learning how to cultivate presence if you're a content creator, because I think that the internet, first of all, implores you to not be present. And I also think that one of the weirdest side effects of being a content creator is that you are constantly scanning your brain and your experience for things that are interesting and relatable and likable and shareable. And that is necessarily kind of a lack of being present and a lack of, it pulls you outside of yourself. And so I think that if you're someone that creates and shares things online and gets a lot of feedback about your personality and your appearance and your message, it's really, really important to learn how to be present. So that could be a lot of different things. That could be meditation. I'm a big meditator. Could be journaling. It could be just quiet, present, alone time with yourself. But I think that's really, really important.
In addition to burnout and boundaries and trying to keep yourself sane in this journey, do you have also any advice on how to stay motivated as a creator? Because whenever I talk with many creators that maybe doing that for a long time, or they're still new to it, some of them are I don't have any more ideas, or maybe I would like to change something because I don't want just to talk about the same thing. So for you, have you find something to be again motivated and be I want to do this video not just because, but actually these are the reasons why I'm doing this today?
I think that staying motivated, in order to, first of all, you won't always stay motivated with anything. Even when you have a career that you love, sometimes you do just have to show up, right? But I think that one thing that helps me stay motivated is giving myself permission to change, because I think that if you're just going through the motions and if you don't allow yourself to evolve, it shows to your audience, and you will lose the joy of it, right? So giving yourself permission to change and evolve feels really important to me to stay motivated. And for that reason, my content has evolved and changed so many times, from going to sharing mostly movement things to it's changed forms a lot of times. And I think that is helpful to it's helped me stay interested. I'm a big goal setter, a big output goal setter, because I think with any type of creative work, it's so easy to just continue to up the ante on yourself until you feel like you don't have anything good to say. And so just giving myself permission and sort of a requirement with respect to volume of production does help me, because I think a lot of the things that you think are bad, not good art, often you're just being really critical. So just kind of allowing yourself to lower that bar that you keep heightening in your head. I think you can be your own motivation, looking back on your own work, things you've shared, things you've made, and approaching them from a different angle. I think it's totally okay and good to look at peers and draw inspiration from other people. And I think that understanding that even parts of your life that don't feel like part of your creative process often are, and restful parts of your life often are an important and necessary part of your process. I a lot of the time have the ideas or the most motivation at times when I'm not sitting down trying to think of things to say or content to create. So I think that all those things help me.
Very good pieces of advice, and not just for creators, I think for everyone listening. Thank you, Victoria, for sharing your story. Best of luck for with the book, with the trip. Quite curious to see and follow what is going to happen in the next months. And thank you for sharing tips and tricks that again I think that are not just for creators but for everyone out there listening. Sometimes mental health it's something that is not there's still a taboo sometimes to talk about. So thank you for doing what you do because I think it's very.
Thank you so much. It was great to talk with you.
Thank you. This was the Influence Factor by the Influencer Marketing Factory, and I'll see you next week.